everyone, and welcome to the planning committee. Right, members, item 1 is your wish I sign as a correct record of the previous minutes of the previous meeting on it. Yes, Councillor.
Yeah, Chairman, on page 4, within the minutes, Council's legal advisor Simon Alley reminded the committee planning reason was required and that traffic flow was a highways matter that would require evidence. This was against the Drayton removal of condition 30, which was DA 2015 0187, which is on page 4. Can I have clarification of that, if I may, Chairman?
That was definitely correct, wasn't it, Simon?
Yes, I recall giving that advice to stand by that today.
Yeah, that is correct. So the minutes is correct. Now, are you all happy that I signed on this correct record? Agreed?
Agreed.
Thank you. Right, apologies.
Councillor Darren Osborne, we think Councillor Sophia Daventry, and Councillor Anne Chant will be leaving at 7:15 for an appointment as chair.
Okay, thank you. Right, members' interests. Nothing? Party whipping arrangements?
Done.
Members of the public, that means we don't get together beforehand in parties, well, in any groups at all, to decide how we're going to vote. We listen to everything on the night. Right, a couple of things to tell you. If the fire alarm bell goes off, it's not a test, it is a genuine fire, or treated as one anyway, and please go out quickly the way you come in, or slowly, so you don't bump into each other. Please switch your mobile devices to silent. The proceedings are being recorded, and speakers will have 3 minutes, and after that you'll hear a tone and be asked to wind up. That's the only opportunity for you to speak, so I ask you if you please don't interrupt during the rest of the debate. And I'm sure you're not going to clap, hiss, cheer or boo or anything like that, but please don't. I'm sure you won't. And you'll see officers talking while you're talking, which looks extremely bad manners, but it's the only way we can get the answer to some of the points you're raising, by having the answer ready by the time you finish speaking. Update on performance, 79% are being dealt with on time and 6% majors, so the figure is not dissimilar to the normal figure. Okay? We now go on to the first application, which is in Crick, and the number is 20161.
Thanks, Chairman.
No, it isn't. Sorry, I beg your pardon. It's 0412. I do apologise.
Thanks, Chairman. Before I start, I'll draw members' attentions to the late representations. Top of the first page from District Councillor Lomax, who's unable to attend the planning committee, but effectively she supports the concerns of the parish council in respect of this particular application. The application before planning committee is an application for an extension, 2-storey extension to the rear of the existing pub facility, effectively to provide a ground floor games room extension with a bedroom over. An existing 2-storey block to the side of the existing property is to be converted to a kitchen and an extended games room with the ground floor. The pub itself, by way of history, is long established and has been relatively recently quite successful. But historically it did have a car park to the rear, which was subsequently given permission for residential development. So the parking that exists for that particular proposal is all that exists on the site frontage, and has existed for some time. But members should concentrate their minds on the application before them, which in effect, could you just leave it on that there? Which in effect, just leave it on the previous one. So in effect, it's you can see the covered drinking area. That will be effectively be enclosed with a bedroom over it. So the proposal creates effectively a single bedroom on the first floor in connection with the existing B&B that operates on the first floor. To that extent, there's no net increase in terms of the drinking area or the area available within the pub itself. The Highway Authority raised some concerns about the need for additional parking. Just go on to the next verse. The applicants have amended the scheme to actually provide parking space on the side of the public house to effectively provide sufficient parking to meet the needs of this particular development, i.e. 2 additional spaces in connection with the bedroom extension that's proposed in this area, which is currently a storage area to the side. But as you can see from the conditions, that area will be reserved for parking. To our mind, the proposal is acceptable in planning terms, and accordingly we're recommending the application be approved, Chairman.
Thank you. Local member, Councillor Robertson.
Well, thank you, Chair. I take notice of what Councillor Lomax has said in the late representations, and also what the parish council have said. However, the area I know pretty well because I happen to be a member of the ex-servicemen's club, which is about 300 yards down the road from there. And I don't regularly use this establishment, but they are providing now 2 additional car parking spaces. Now, a little bit contentious perhaps because it has been suggested that that won't solve the problem, which it won't, but it does go to some way to with this one particular development, which is all we're discussing here, this one room, it goes some way to alleviate the parking or negate the additional requirement for parking just for that development. Other than that, Chair, I've got nothing more to say.
Thank you. Any other comments? Yes, sir.
Thank you, Chairman. I too know this site very well. I have great difficulty in passing this pub. That's not because I want to go in, it's because I have great difficulty in negotiating the parked vehicles in the evening when the pub's open. They're on both sides of the road, despite the notices that the police have put up saying please don't park here. But I know that's not a planning matter, but I just wanted to say that the feelings you've heard about the concerns about parking in the road there are very well founded, but not related to this particular application.
Thank you, Councillor Chandler. Councillor.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. I think we should really support local business. These days pubs are shutting here, there and everywhere, and to help retain business as a community asset is an excellent idea, really, and I think we should support the applicant in his endeavours.
Thank you. Is that a proposal or not?
I'll propose that we accept officers' advice.
Thank you. Do you have a second now? Thank you. Would you like to speak now?
No, thank you, Mark.
It's quite an unusual village to have 4 successful pubs. Not many villages have that anymore, not even the large ones. If anybody else doesn't wish to speak, we have a proposal the application be approved, which has been seconded. All those in favour, please show. Unanimous. The application is approved.
Chair, can I just make a point, please?
Yeah.
On the point of, I don't know what you think. I was looking at this application online and I was mortified by the quality of the presentation that we were given in the documents that were presented to the planning department and were on the website. I think we should have some sort of minimum standards of the quality and readability of the documents before we will accept them.
Okay, Keith, you wish to start?
I'll come back on that. I know the case offer pursued the applicant's agent. The agent is one of, shall we say, old school, doesn't subscribe to electronic printing or whatever. The case officer prepared him, actually tried to get better quality drawings, made several attempts, but unfortunately the timing issue of getting the application to committee unbalanced all the information that we had before us in terms of photographs, case officer's notes, etc. We felt there was sufficient information to judge the application on its own notes. But yeah, I agree with you. When I opened these on Monday, I thought they're very vague, they didn't show up well. We did try to get better quality, but it's a fair point.
Thank you.
At least it's proved, Councillor Fredcon, that you look at the website. Right, next application is in Broadston, and the number is 0427.
Thanks, Chairman. The application owners are speaking here tonight, the agent speaking on behalf of the applicants. The applicants currently live on the site just to the south of the application site. This site's just to the west of the marina complex of Braunston, and just outside the canal, the marina conservation area on the A45. The existing property that the applicants currently live in fronts the A45 and has its own separate access directly onto the A45 with parking. The applicants actually have a number of hobbies and businesses connected with the canal marina itself in terms of producing publicity and artwork, etc. associated with the canal. And whilst we're not making an argument here that it's essential for them to live on the site, they do have quite a long established connection with the canal and the canal network. Essentially this application is an application that they wish to construct a new dwelling to the rear. Can you just please say. So the applicants are proposing to construct a new dwelling in the rear garden of the existing property and retain the existing property to the front with its own separate access. Access to the new dwelling will be via an existing access of the wharf roadway, which also then leads directly onto the A45. It's a fairly modest property, but it provides for accommodation that the applicants require in their early years, whilst maintaining their connection with the local canal, etc. In planning terms, obviously the starting point is planning policy and the development plan. We say that and the report says that the site lies outside the confines of the village, in that the village of Braunston lies to the north. Just go to the site location. And just leave it there. So the village lies to the north and is completely separate from the Braunston Marina Canal network to the south. That said, on its own particular merits, it is a complex of buildings and business activities and residential development that can't be ignored. And whilst it's not a designated settlement, nevertheless it still exists with good access onto the A45. And you'll see from the report that mention is made of previous decisions of this council, where quite uniquely, and it should be pointed out that despite the parish council's objections to this particular application, they were supportive of applications to the south in respect of development of the old lane, which the council duly approved in due course. Whilst I would contend that doesn't create a precedent in respect of this particular application, I consider the particular circumstances of this application are such that they weigh in favour of the proposal. So despite the conflict with policy in planning terms, our judgment is that the proposal, which is for a very modest dwelling, enables somebody to continue to live and provide a connection with the canal network, and will not be readily visible from outside of the site. On its planning merits is judged to be acceptable, and accordingly recommending the application to be approved. I would also draw members' attention to the late representations in the comments of the landscape officer, who, although it doesn't raise any objections, suggested additional conditions to secure methodologies for the construction of foundations to ensure that the existing trees on site, which either lie within the conservation area, are properly protected during the construction of the proposed dwelling. Thanks, Chairman.
Thank you, Aaron. We have one speaker. Mr. Hammond, who's the agent?
Thank you, Chair. Good evening, councillors, officers. I'm Roy Hammond and I speak as agent on behalf of Mr and Mrs Kelly, primarily in response to the concerns raised by Braunston Parish Council. Mr and Mrs Kelly pass on their apologies for not attending this evening. That Mr Kelly is actually convalescing abroad with family at the moment following an illness. Mr and Mrs Kelly have voted in and around Braunston for 25 years, have worked in the village for 15 years and have lived there for 13 years. They now find that following various spells of poor health, some serious and potentially long-term for both of them, their current home is getting too large and too expensive for them to handle. They therefore wish to subdivide their garden and build a modest home that will be suitable for their old age and possibly disability, yet provide a reasonable space for them both to continue their canal-orientated work, this being Mrs. Kelly's canal guides, maps and mobile apps, and Mrs. Kelly's boat painting, canal art and children's canal books. They've designed their new home very much with the emerging neighbourhood plan in mind and have given me this sheet quoting over 20 of the most pertinent clauses and policies with which their design complies, and I would just like to summarise these for you now. So most importantly, the new build will be within the existing confines of the village in our view, having regard to recent planning committee decisions for the new builds in Old Road. The neighbourhood plan says that where there were a number of people who expressed preference that any new homes that are built should address the needs of the elderly, this design is suitable not only for the elderly but also for the disabled. The proposal provides sufficient opportunity for these older, long-standing residents to downsize and ensures that they as local people will not be forced to move from the village in order to meet their housing needs. The proposal is sympathetic to local vernacular architecture, incorporating windows, doors, brickwork and weatherboarding identical to the wharf buildings that surround it. It's of high quality, designed for a high energy efficiency with adequate off-road parking, and its small scale, which is in keeping with the character of the area, and so will retain local distinctiveness and a sense of the place. And finally, it does not affect open land nor impact important areas of separation, and as my clients point out, it's virtually impossible for anyone to see the site either looking from or towards the village due to the low level of the garden and the high banks and mature trees and hedgerows that surround it on all sides. They'd like me to make the point that they love living in Bournemouth and around the canals and do not want to have to leave. As agents, I'd just like to point out and highlight that the application followed a favourable pre-application discussion with the council. We've amended the design to meet the officer's requirements and addressed the flood rating related concerns and highway comments. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Hammond. Members.
Can I ask a question?
You can, Councillor Weston.
There is some notes from the Highway Authority there. Can we have those clarified that that was all A-OK?
Anyone?
And should it be part of conditions?
In what regard?
It says that these things must occur.
What specifically? When I introduced it, I made clear that the existing dwelling has its own act. Can you just go back to the photograph? The existing dwelling, yeah, just leave it. Can I just cut the... Right, on that particular photograph, you'll see the drop curb in the immediate foreground. Yeah, there is the curb and access that serves the existing dwelling. Yeah. To the right is the access road into the wharf, and off that the new dwelling will be accessed. Can you just go to that? That's true. Yeah, so that's the access serving the proposed dwelling. It's an existing access. It's off the wharf road. So there's no changes to, and no need for any changes to the existing situation.
So it complies with the...
Well, as far as we're concerned, there are no highway issues to be responded to. The proposed dwelling will have sufficient, adequate parking to serve. Can you just continue on? So that's the parking that will serve the existing dwelling, and the proposed dwelling, which exists. And the existing dwelling will have its own parking that currently exists straight off the A45.
Councillor Evans.
Thank you, Chairman. I've looked at it on the internet. I know the site. I think it will sit well in there. It won't be seen from the roads. It will sit well with the canal. I like the way they've designed it, that it will look as though it's an old canal building. And I'd like to think that we would follow up its advice and approve this application. So I'd like to propose it.
Thank you. Do you have a second then? Thank you, Councillor. Would you like to speak now or?
Nothing to add, Chairman.
Okay, thank you. Right, Councillor Patchett is next, followed by Councillor Richard.
Sorry, Chairman, it's Councillor.
Sorry. Yeah, so.
I stopped sitting next to him.
Yeah.
I just want to clarify one point. On page 24, it says the applicant is claiming a self-build exemption. How do we clarify a self-build? And aren't all houses self-built?
Well, not all houses are self-built. I mean, it depends where you buy them. If you're buying one of a big estate, then they're not
Built
self-built.
like people,
I mean,
aren't they?
well, I think in this case it's a bespoke individual dwelling that's meeting the specific needs of the applicants. I think when you're referring to self-build exemption, that's under the SIL regulations, and that's an entirely separate set of regulations from dealing with the planning merits of an application. It's about raising monies towards infrastructure, etc. Within the provision of those regulations, you can claim exemption, so you don't have to pay SIL on any new build residential development, provided you meet the requirements on those exemptions. Those exemptions can apply to social housing, affordable housing, or indeed self-build, where the dwelling itself is for the specific person carrying it out, building it for themselves or having it built for their own needs, and they're going to be living in it for at least 3 years to be exempt from SIL.
That just strikes me as those criteria could apply to almost any house.
Well, the SIL regulations are separate from dealing with the planning merits of an application.
No, I'm asking about the SIL regulations, not
Well,
the planning
yeah. Well, as I say, the provisions are there under the SIL regulations, and they meet them in terms of claiming the exemptions, and they satisfy it, and they will not have to pay SIL.
You just interjected, Chairman. It's included in the report because you have to have regard to financial considerations now. As you remember, that was the thing brought in by the government. So what we're really saying here is you don't have to have regard to financial considerations because the plan itself built doesn't want to be a financial contribution into SIL. That's really what we're saying. That's why it's there, really.
Yes, through you, Chairman. If members would like more information about how SIL works, I mean, it is broadly a regime established nationally, and we can include that in the next lot of members' training if you wish.
Good idea.
That would be useful. Right, Councillor Ritchie. I'm sorry, Councillor Patchett and Councillor Frenchman. I don't know why I get you two mixed up. It's probably the glasses, I should think. Councillor Ritchie, I don't get you mixed up.
Can I first ask for a bit of clarification? We've been told what Mrs. Kelly do in their attachment to the canal. But if they move away, they're not going to take the house with them. The house is going to remain. To what extent are we obliged to take any account of the wishes of the people who are actually building the house, the wishes to be living in that, in that particular site? It strikes me that that what is built surely is what we must focus on, rather than what the Kellys would like to do. Most people can travel to work. There are other houses in the Bronson area. I would just like some guidance about whether or not the information that we have been offered is at all relevant to the decision that we are going to take.
Simple answer to that is that the agent is provided by way of background some of the circumstances that the applicants find themselves in. I don't think those particular circumstances have tipped the planning balance in this particular case as far as planning officers are concerned. And indeed, when I introduced the item, I didn't suggest that it was essential that they had to live here. But on its planning balance, the proposal was acceptable on its planning, and accordingly we're recommending the application be approved. So we're not saying it's essential for the Kellys to live here. What we're saying is that yes, it sits outside the confines of the village. Yes, it conflicts with some policies. However, in the context of Bronson Marina, which is quite a sprawling range of complex building, business, residential, etc., this proposal will not cause harm. It will be way against the proposal in such a way as to warrant refusing it on planning grounds.
You can come back, Councillor.
Yes, if that's the case, I still have two major concerns here. You're right that there is a bit of a sprawl along the side of the marina. Not a huge sprawl, but a sprawl nevertheless. But around about where this development is proposed, you have got a very historic centre for, for canals. It's a historic centre that has got the merit that there is still, there are the workshops, the boat building still continues there. But other than the house that is there on the corner, you have got a little complex that is surely, historically important, not just to Bronson but to the whole county. Now I know that the proposed area is just outside the restricted area, but nevertheless I know that the conservation officer does say it's got potential to impact upon the setting of the canal conservation area. It is very close. And I just have a concern about us giving a go-ahead to building just around about this area. My second concern is probably a bigger one. The parish council has come back and said that this would not comply with the neighbourhood plan. They have spent a long time putting their neighbourhood plan together. It was submitted, I believe, earlier this year. I just think that if we were to take a decision that was contrary to what the parish council and the people of Bronson want to see, it's rather sticking up two fingers to them. So on those grounds, I'm not inclined to support this.
Thank you, Councillor.
Sorry, Chairman, can I just come back?
Yeah.
Councillor Ritchie, you quoted the conservation officer. And yeah, you're right, she does say it has the potential, but going further down her comments, she says, I do not consider the application site does not appear to be an integral element of the canal, either currently or historically. I do not consider that the setting of these buildings and structures would be affected by the proposed development. The application site is enclosed on all sides by existing vegetation. There's a TPO woodland to the west, etc., etc. So she has considered the potential and judged that whilst there is a potential, it doesn't impact on the setting of the conservation area.
There is another point. Before you came on the committee, so you probably wouldn't be aware of this, Broadston Parish Council did support two applications the other side of the A45, so the bottom of that.
Yeah, sir, I could fully understand that, because the other side of the E45 doesn't impact even from the
No, you were talking about the neighbourhood plan.
The neighbourhood plan.
But they were saying the officers at one point said that wasn't part of the village, and the parish councils did. Anyway, just a point.
Just if I can clarify for you, Chairman, the neighbourhood plan, I believe it isn't made or adopted at this stage.
That's my
so
understanding.
it carries minimal weight.
Okay.
Planning.
Councillor Paul.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. I'm led by the Canal and River Trust, who have conservation areas here, there and everywhere. Canal and River Trust have no objection, subject to a suitably worded conditions, and the officer has already spoke about the retainment of the trees, of sympathetic needs for the trees. I'm happy to go with officer advice, purely and simply the Canal and River Trust are happy with it. And yes, thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Paul. If there's no more comments, we have a proposal the application be approved, which has been seconded. All those in favour, please show. Those against? The application is approved. The next application is in Oveston, 0756.
Thank you, Chairman. We've got the plans working just in corner now, for me to sign. site is on the edge of Malton, as you'll see there, but it is actually in the parish of Everston. Having said that, if you look in the light reps, you'll see that we have now had comments from Malton Parish Council who say they support the proposal. Basically, the proposal is for a backland dwelling, or a better description, sat in the garden of the house property there that sits to the front. You'll also see from the land representations there's a gentleman who represents the neighbouring Cotswold who's very concerned about the impact of the proposal on that property, and as he can't attend, has had his comments put in the light rep, so just refer members to that. I think the other thing I just wanted to point out as well in terms of access, because that's one of the concerns about the comings and goings down the access at the side of the house. The property itself, Lane Dean, does actually have another entrance into the front of that property on the left-hand side, as it appears there, roughly where the mouse pointer's moving. So the only traffic that will actually be going down the side entrance would normally go to the house at the back. It won't include the house at the front as well. So the access to that will remain in front. As I say, I think on balance we have policies in our local plans we know that deal with backland development, and on balance we think it just about complies and having the benefit of the presumption in favour of development. I recommend your approval. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Chief. The other speaker, Mr. Clark, is the agent.
Thank you, Chairman, members. Thank you for this opportunity to speak this evening. I'm speaking on behalf of the applicants, Mr. and Mrs. Wiles, who are sitting to my left here this evening. Mr. and Mrs. Wiles are pleased that your officers have assessed the proposal and have concluded that it is acceptable in planning terms and are recommending approval subject to conditions. Whilst your officers have concluded that the proposal is acceptable on its planning merits, regardless of the personal circumstances of the applicant, I would like to explain the personal rationale behind the application so the committee is fully aware of the facts. Mrs. Wiles is severely disabled, a paraplegic who is wheelchair bound. Their existing property landing is not suitable for her needs and therefore causes her practical problems on a daily basis. The intention, therefore, is to construct this proposed single-storey dwelling to meet her needs. It has been purpose designed to include wider doors, wider corridors, a wet room ensuite facility, provision for hoists, and a level threshold to the main entrance. The applicants have been very concerned to ensure that this proposal to meet their needs does not have a harmful effect on neighbours, particularly the immediate neighbours of Cotswold, Mathon and the retained property Langdene. To that end, the building has been designed as single-storey and thereby no overlook windows and with sufficient space between and around buildings. The access to serve the new property will run to the side of the property in the position of an existing garage to be demolished. There is adequate width to form a suitable drive, and the applicants are prepared to ensure the provision of a suitable means of enclosure along the boundary with Cotswold, and this is covered by conditions. I would therefore ask you to follow your officer's recommendation and grant planning permission subject to conditions. Thank you.
Thank you. There's no local member here, so members. Councillor Frenchman.
Thank you. On planning issues, I think I have 4 problems with this, and I don't know whether the officers can just clarify them. One is it appears to me to be an overdevelopment of the site. Secondly, there appears to be little or no amenity land for the new property. Thirdly, I'm concerned about the party wall and the demolition of the garage and the effect it will have on the extension that doesn't seem to be shown on there from the neighbouring property. And the last one, which is been alluded to, is security, because this driveway gives access to the whole range of the back of these houses and also has a house tucked away, as we've now heard, with perhaps a disabled occupant. And I would have thought security matters should be dealt with slightly more weightily than they have been. especially for the neighbouring properties and access to their back gardens.
Thank you.
I don't think there's overdevelopment to the site, to be honest. I'm happy enough that there's adequate space for both properties. I think those were the first two points. Sorry, I can't read Mary Martin on the third point. Party wall, that was it, sorry. Yeah, the demolition of the garage, again, that's dealt with, I think, adequately with one condition that we've said, you know, they've got to make sure that when that's taken down, that the wall is protected for the neighbour. The other one was security, wasn't it? As we've said, they'll put a fence and new site boundary down there. And the crime prevention design advisor suggested maybe a gate across the front to close it off so people can't get down there. But yeah, having said all that, people can climb over fences, and as you remember from the site plan, it is currently still a field at the back. So there's nothing to stop people going down into the field and climbing over the back fence presumably. So I don't think in the sense that this makes it any worse. It necessarily doesn't make it any worse in that sense.
Thank you. The gate across the drive, I think, is an important issue. My main concern with the party wall is that you can't just have a freestanding wall. It would have to have some sort of support. And will that not, in effect, narrow the drive to an extent that you might not be able to get vehicles down it?
I think they'll just have to consider how they're going to do the wall, basically. Obviously, we've said within, I think we said there, within 1 week of demolition of the site on the garage, a section of the wall shall be either replaced with a new wall of similar height or made good and finished as done to meet the current building regulations. But I don't know what that would entail, basically. It might mean some sort of retention in terms of putting a buttress or something there, which would narrow it down a little bit more. But I've got 2.8 metres as I've measured it on the drawing at the moment, and that should be sufficient to get a vehicle out of it.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. Councillor Ritchie?
Yes, I mean, it's certainly, looking at the diagrams that you have shown, overdevelopment is something that occurs to me. You know, if all of these bungalows were to decide that they had similar problems and were going to build in the back, you know, the whole area is going to be covered in, you know, covered in building practically. That is something that would worry me. But I would comment, as I did on the previous application that we considered. It's important that that Mrs. Wells has a suitable accommodation. But is this the way to actually do it? That accommodation, once it is built, is going to be there for the next 100, 150 years. I don't know what the costs are of adapting an existing house. I would imagine that that is a much more economic way of providing suitable accommodation than actually, you know, arguing it as a case for building a new one. I'm simply not convinced.
Thank you. Councillor Paul.
Chairman, it sounds, it doesn't sound right. Purely and simply because if I said that I'm not interested in the occupants, that sounds absolutely awful. However, we are here because of a planning application, and one of the previous applications, the house was being built for a particular reason, and what happens if that reason went away. That was given as background information. I look at this as also background information, Chairman. I'm trying to balance it with regards to planning rules and planning guidance, irrespective of the occupants of the dwelling. And that's where I'm left, and I have to go along with officer advice in this instance.
Thank you. Is that a proposal?
Yes, the
Do you have a
proposal
second?
with officer advice.
Councillor Chant, I think, was a microsecond before you, Councillor. Would you like to speak, Councillor Chant?
Yes, I just have one observation, maybe for the benefit of Councillor Ritchie. As one who has just spent a fortune, he doesn't have adapting an existing house to suit the needs of a disabled person. Had the space been available, I would seriously have considered building a new house.
Thank you. Any more comments? Yes.
Could I just ask officers a question again? Is there any merit at all, in your view, on the overdevelopment question?
Not really. There's room to fit it in. I think it's got adequate access in our view, and it's got adequate garden area for both the new and the existing property. So I don't think there's anything to say that it's overdevelopment in that sense that we can say.
Thank you, Councillor Leslie. If there's no more comments, we have a proposal the application be approved as per officer's advice, which has been seconded. All those in favour, please show. Those against? The application is approved.
Sorry to be a nuisance, Chair, but I noticed Malton have asked for a condition to be imposed. Are we ignoring that?
I think it's effectively taken care of anyway as part of the screen details that we've already agreed.
Thank you very much.
Next one is in Hamilton, and I'm sure we've seen it several times before, 0797. Sorry?
Yes, thank you, Chairman. As you said, we've seen this site several times before. Just to look at the planning history, you may remember this started off as the old Red House Pub, which is where Red House Lane comes from, presumably. And then it got changed into a nightclub that's called itself Henry's of Hamilton. And then it closed, then it fell into disrepair, became an eyesore. And there's been several schemes. It originally started off as a conversion of the old pub building to turn it into 3 dwellings, I think it was, plus a separate new build garage. But gradually, people have moved away from that idea, probably due to the cost, the fact that the building had deteriorated and it's pointing into the A43. And came up with an alternative solution, which was to build new dwellings further back on site, which we went along with in principle. And then obviously the number of dwellings has gradually been creeping up. Now, you have actually previously already approved 6 dwellings on the site because you've approved 4 plus 2. But that was off a single entrance point. And what the difference here is effectively is that it's now 2 separate private drives, which the County Council are happy with due to that separation distance between the 2 of them. Obviously they both go off Red House Line, which is far less busy than the A43, and that was always going to be the case. There's never going to be direct access off the A43. So really, the principle's already been established for that number, and it's been recommended for approval as an alternative for the same number, on the basis again that we have Section 106 agreements to deal with a commuted sum payment to provide the 2 affordable houses that would have to be provided on this site under our policy H2. On the basis that it's an isolated site in the middle of nowhere, we think it's pretty unlikely that an RSL would want to take over such property, so we're happy in this case to have a commuting payment to demand provision elsewhere rather than on the site, which is the normal requirement. So with that caveat, Chairman, we recommend your approval.
Thank you, Keith. Again, no local member here, so members. Councillor Frenchman, the real one.
Could you just are they knocking down the existing building?
Yes, they are, yes. Yeah. You see the dotted, it does actually show the kind of a hatched in the banks. But half of it's missing, to be honest, because it comes further down, it comes a bit further down.
Right.
So it's missing.
The sooner the better.
But as you can see, it is a bit of an eyesore.
Yeah, I mean, judging by the history that we've been through at this committee with it, I'm there's nothing really much to complain about, so I'd like to propose we accept officers.
Thank you. And I've got you down to speak second, so would you like to speak?
Yes, I'll just going to say that I don't really know this area particularly well myself, but pretty much anything there would be better than what's there now, wouldn't it? And you know, I think everything that officers have said is correct, and I'm very happy to second it.
Thank you. Councillor Adam.
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, I think it looks all right. There seems to be 6 good houses there, plenty of parking on each one. But there's one thing on the application form I'd like clarified, please. It is a new one because it says about putting 2 or 3 applications into one. It's about the parking arrangements. And on this new form, it's got that there will be 24 parking spaces for cars, 6 disability spaces, 6 for motorcycles, and 1 for light good vehicle or public carrying vehicles. Now, can you please get that correct?
It sounds brilliant, doesn't it?
That's on the application form that's on the website.
I think that must be a mistake.
It sounds like there wouldn't be enough room for cars.
I can't see any other park in there, and I can't see any reason for them, but I'd like to clarify, please.
I think it's called a car park again.
I've spotted that, to be fair, but I can only imagine the agents that's filled it in. Maybe they
It is a new application
used
form,
the
because it says about
yeah,
putting all
maybe
the
they've used the sign form they've
items in
used for
one.
something else and accidentally filled in or used one they've used before for something else.
But well done for spotting it, yeah.
I mean, you've got what's proposed on the drawing, obviously, which is, but yeah, you're right.
Yeah, it's what they put on the application.
Yeah,
form,
there's definitely about 4 parking spaces for each house, which is great.
The only thing I can think of is if they ever in the past calculated what was available for them, and they're saying that was the difference.
Yeah, I think
They're
that's...
saying minus 16 spaces is
It
the
says
difference.
existing number of spaces, what they're saying is 40.
Yeah.
And then total proposed is 24, difference in spaces.
Yeah, I've seen that minus 16.
Yeah.
I think that's what it is. It's basically what it is. But I mean, it hasn't been used as a third obviously for a long, long time.
Haven't mentioned tennis courts.
That's fine.
It looks like 4 per house, including the garage space.
Okay.
Looking at that closer.
Councillor Wesley.
Yeah, I'm a bit confused about the Highway Authority again and their objection and on some proposed thing into the future and how and why they make that observation on objecting to it, but it appears there's no basis that they have an objection to it. I mean, do they or don't they have a basis?
Well, basically, they want to widen the A43, so they're objecting to anybody building anything that they might have to pay compensation on at a future date. But we don't know when they're going to widen it or if even they're going to widen the A43. So it's an in-principle objection, effectively, to the fact they may, if they have to compulsory purchase something in the future, pay compensation. Whether it's physically there or not, though, isn't necessarily the case, because there's another thing called the Certificate of Alternative Lawful Development that people do in such cases. So they could also apply for something on the basis that if I had applied to do this, you would have given me a planning permission, wouldn't you? Or if we say yes, we would, even though they haven't got actual planning permission or actually built anything, they're still liable to receive that compensation, because that's what happened when the A14 was built. All the farmers on the road said, you would have given me planning permission to convert the farm, wouldn't you, that's now under the A14, and I got compensation accordingly. So just because it isn't there or just because it isn't built doesn't mean it won't actually be a problem they might have to deal with if they CPO around. So I think we're assuming that obviously we've already given permission for 6 in principle anyway. The building's already there anyway, which must have some value as it stands because it did have various planning permissions. So they're going to have to pay something presumably to the landowner if it goes ahead, but it might never happen, or they might change the route, which doesn't require the demolition anymore, acquisition of that part of the site. So I think that's why we've said what we've said really. We've said, well, we're not going to refuse it on the basis that you might widen the A43 one now.
Okay. We have a proposal that this be accepted, which has been seconded. All those in agreement, please show. Unanimous. The application is approved. Right, Right, only 2 left. Yeah, okay. I'll explain while we're waiting a second in this believe it or not. Right, the next application is in Daventry, Abbey South, and it's 0802. The reason why you had to wait a second is it's a relative of loss, and that's the only reason it's, to my mind, that's the only reason it's here. It wouldn't have been delegated otherwise.
Thanks, Chairman. The application site you see is bottom end of North Street, which is effectively a cul-de-sac. It doesn't have any access onto the High Street, but it does provide access to the library and a lot of businesses up in that location. The property itself is a fairly modest single-storey dwelling with rooms in the roof space and a garage to the side. The application is proposing to abolish the existing garage, construct effectively a fairly long, linear, single-storey dwelling with amenity space to the rear. Parking provision will be provided at the front of the property, so there's no issues of access to the rear. 2 spaces for the proposed property, 2 spaces for the existing, with 6 metres between, which provides adequate space to manoeuvre into and out, so that you can leave and get onto North Street in a forward gear. In terms of elevations, they have been amended to reduce it to a fairly low-key property, which visually provides actually quite a nice end stop to the bottom of North Street. I'm just going to try and open photographs for members, if I can. So for members' benefit, series of photographs. This is the property. So this is the garage that's going to be taken down, and the proposal is going in there. It's quite a large open area at the front for the adequate provision for parking of 4 vehicles at the front. Again, North Street's not a particularly busy road, but it does provide access up to, as I say, those businesses. In terms of sort of an end stop, effectively, you have a single-storey dwelling across there, which in our view provides an improvement to the large flat roof garage. Accordingly, we recommend the application be approved, Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you, Aaron. We have a speaker, Mrs. Randall, speaking on behalf of the Town Council.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. We did look at this application at the beginning and recommended permission, and then when we read the report from the officer, we obviously were taking into consideration what the highways had written, because obviously, as we know, at highways we very often have to adhere to what highways say, and often we would like to refuse things that we're told that highways, if highways have for approval, then we almost have to do what they say. So we were then looking at what they were saying about the manoeuvring of the vehicles and what they would like to see. Now, even though there's not too much traffic that goes up and down that road, there is traffic parts up that road all of the time. Parking is worsened over the last few months in the town, especially since Tesco's has reduced its parking to 2.5 hours. So where there wasn't congestion, there now is congestion, and people are parking in every available spot. So I did read back through this. That's what I was looking for, reps, just to try and see where it had changed to say that they would now adhere to what highways had set out that they do. But that was our main concern, that we felt that it should be, we should take on board what highways had said and, adhere to what they'd said.
Thank you. Do you want to comment on that,
Not really, Chairman. I mean, at the bottom of page 47, there are the Highway Authority subsequent observations. They were asking for a swept path analysis. In dealing with applications, you have to decide whether it's proportionate and reasonable to ask for more and more drawings. The revised drawings clearly indicate the provision of 2 parking spaces, as I've said, to serve the proposed dwelling, 2 to serve the existing dwelling, with adequate space between the 2 to allow vehicles to manoeuvre into and out of the dwelling and leave the site in forward gear. In our view, these revised drawings demonstrate that the proposal can provide adequate parking for both the proposed dwelling and the existing.
Thank you. Right, local members. Is there a local member for this particular ward here?
Yeah.
Councillor West. Right, you go first.
Yeah, again, I think I have a few concerns about the highways comments as well, and the fact that the applicant just decided not to do as was requested on. Was it on cost grounds? It was too expensive. You know, I think it's all very well to say. It's all very well to say in opinion, yeah, we can. That's actually fine. But I mean, if somebody wants to build something and they've been asked to comply with our local highways authority to actually prove that that is the case, to not actually even attempt to do it, I think it's not right. And I think for officers just to say, oh yeah, we think it's fine. I mean, why would the highways authority ask for something that wasn't needed? I don't understand. You know, they're the experts, and you know, we listen to them, and they just say no, it's fine, because that road, although it is a cul-de-sac, it is a busy road, and it is constantly chock with cars, and it is particularly busy at busy times. I know that sounds a bit obvious, but leaving work times and going to work times, there are a lot of people park their cars up there, and it does get a little bit mad up there, to be honest. In fact, I agree it's fairly short periods, but you know, reversing out of there is not ever going to be a good idea. You could already see on that picture that there were cars literally parked opposite the gate again. So, you know, I do think applicants should actually take heed of what they're asked to do on these things. And then we'd all know that it was hunky-dory and okay, wouldn't we?
I think in fairness to the planning officers, it's not uncommon for them to interpret a planning application. Sometimes they believe that what highways want is so minimal that they believe it can be overcome, and they believe it's okay. It's about every second planning committee we have an application like that the officer doesn't think it's serious enough that you should go exactly by the book. For every little detail.
Chair, can I say something? Can I just reply to you on that, please? Because actually, I mean, there are other options. I mean, you may not have done a full swept path analysis, but I mean, they could have just done a turning. I mean, the planner could have done a turning circle analysis of their own. And just sort of said, you know, this is how it's. There's other options on doing that.
Well, let the planner answer himself.
Again, Chairman, through you, the drawings indicate a clear separation distance between the both parking spaces of 6 metres, which is a well-recognised distance for allowing vehicles to enter and leave a parking space, and reverse out of that parking space to enable the car to leave in forward gear.
So the highways authority.
Well, again, members are perfectly entitled to come to an alternative view. What we're saying is planning officers with years of experience of dealing with these applications and knowledge of the standing advice provided by the local highway authority, which actually makes reference to the 6 metre distance behind parking spaces, that in this particular case there's sufficient distance. Whether or not the local highway authority are being reasonable and proportionate in terms of this particular application for single dwelling to ask for swept path analysis is a matter of opinion. If members feel that it's perfectly reasonable to do that, they're entitled to refuse the application if they so wish.
Or defer.
But then you need to obviously justify that reason in due course on appeal.
Chairman, or you could defer if you wanted to. That was your concern, if you wanted that sort of block.
I think the thing for me, Chairman, to be fair, is what time has picked up where they issue us with standing highways advice, which I sometimes say they hide behind when it suits them. And that is a diagram that's in that standard advice. A 6 metre back-to-back distance between parking spaces is considered acceptable to reverse out and drive out in a forward manner. So they're going against their own standards, to be quite honest, in making the comments they've made. I mean, I would have gone back to them and said, well, it complies with your standard, what's your problem? Is your standard wrongly?
Councillor Paul.
No, sorry,
He's finished.
Councillor Adam.
Oh, it's Councillor Adam, is
I'm
it?
on Abbey Cells.
All right. Oh, yes, and you said the next time I forgot your Abbey says you'd assassinate me or something.
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, I know this site well, and I've actually been down and had a look today as well. I think there's plenty of room for the cars to actually come out forward if they have to. The entrance has been widened slightly. The bungalow, I understand, is for a disabled lady, so there's a good chance there won't be 2 cars outside all the time. The bungalow next to it at the moment is empty, so that belongs to the applicant as well. I'm sure some arrangement could be done. Well, I don't know who's going to live in the bungalow, the other bungalow yet, whether it's going to be the applicant or whether he's going to do it up and sell it. But there's plenty of room there for parking. I think he's thought the bungalow through well. It would be very good for a disabled person near to the town centre. I don't have any problem with it at all. I propose to follow officer advice if needed.
Thank you, Councillor Adam. Do you have a second? Councillor Paul. Would you like to speak, Councillor Paul?
Yeah, my only comment would be that, I accept what officers are saying. I'm a known anti-highways man, but I don't see a problem with the property. With driving out in a forward manner. There are double yellow lines there, as you can see or not see, because the highways haven't got the money to replace the double yellow lines, but they are there anyway. And yes, it is difficult. I have to accept what Councillor Wesley has said. There are times when it is difficult, particularly on market days, because if you're like me on a blue badge and you want to park at the library on a market day, it's not very clever going up and down the road. But however, we are where we are. That is not dissimilar to many thousands of roads up and down the country, and provided one drives with due care, I don't see a problem, and I would happily accept officers' advice.
Thank you. So you're second the proposal. Right, any other comments? Councillor.
Thank you, Chair. I think at the end of the day, it's all hypothetical anyway. To turn down this planning application on the basis you hope they're going to use good common sense and drive out forward, there's no way you could police that anyway. So, as I say, it's all hypothetical, and I think I'd go with officers' advice for that reason, really.
Thank you, Councillor Carr. I have to say, as a person that went to school there and everything, I think the worst thing that ever happened to North Street was it being opened up down at the bottom. It was much better when it was closed.
Yeah.
You didn't used to be able to go in at the bottom. You only used to be able to get at it from the high street when I went to school, and it was a lovely little quiet road. You couldn't get through there. Right, we have a proposal. No, not a horse and cart. It wasn't that long ago, Councillor.
No, he's getting it made, sorry.
Right, we have a proposal the application be approved, which has been seconded. All those in favour, please show us. Got the number again? 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Those against? So there must be an abstention now.
I left the room, Chair,
Oh,
so
you
I
left the
presume
room.
I couldn't
That's right.
vote.
Okay, thank you. The application is approved. Could you ask Maria to come back in? Yeah, she's heard on it.
Well, that's fine.
The last application on the agenda tonight is in Spratton 0804.
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, as you see there, this application relates to a building which sits off the Brixworth Road there, towards the centre of Spratton. The proposal is to use the building for residential purposes, effectively turning into a two-bedroom dwelling. Currently has a commercial use. There seems to be some dispute, shall we say, over exactly what that might be. Some people say it's more low-key than others. Some say it's a workshop, some say it's storage. Planning-wise, it's all before planning. So there is no actual planning permission granted for whatever it was back in the day. I think it's true to say it was probably associated with the dwelling that sits immediately to the rear of it, which is number 33. And the boundary of the building forms part of the front garden boundary to number 33, with windows that look straight over that garden boundary. The proposal, as I say, is to convert. You've got a picture there now which shows the relationship. The proposal is to convert to a two-bedroom dwelling. You'll see from the elevations that the proposal has been modified now to make them obscure glazed windows that all look over that side, or else their roof lights, which are 2.7 metres above floor area, which means you will be able to look at them. Plus the ones in the centre of the building are over a void anyway, so that would be the ground floor height. There's no way you'll be able to obviously look out for them. I would just point members to the like representations. You'll see there's been further comments from the neighbour of the house that's immediately adjacent. There's also been some comments from the neighbour who's opposite. And I would also like to add that I think we would suggest, if it was to be approved, an additional condition is added on dealing with any potential for contamination based on the comments of the environmental health officer, that the floor's going to have to be dug up, just to make sure there are no issues with that. So that additional suggestion. The other point, obviously, that I need to make is that one of the major issues that, apart from the overlooking, which has been dealt with, I think, adequately, is the fact there's no parking with this building. And you'll see from the photographs, no doubt hear from the speakers shortly, that people are parking on the pavements in that part of the village. And there is nowhere for anyone who uses this building to park, so it's just going to lead to further parking on the pavement. Highways have pointed that out. I mean, it is starting to be obvious in that sense, really. There is no parking. So the question is, what do we do? Does that mean that we refuse every single potential use of the building, given that it must have some sort of existing use? In any event, that must generate some sort of parking from time to time. And I think we've taken the view that, despite what's been said in the Spratton neighbourhood plan, about every new dwelling must have adequate off-street parking, that doesn't necessarily apply to changes of use, where there is no potential for any more parking, because that would effectively rule out any more changes of use of any buildings to residential. And I'm not convinced that's the correct interpretation, but others might take a different view. So on that basis, given that there is no parking, we think we've dealt with the overlooking. Obviously, there is a potential that the building has some sort of use which could be used, which would still have a parking situation outside. But on balance, we felt that the residential use would be an acceptable use of that building, and that's why we've recommended approval. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Keith. We have two speakers. First of all, Mr. Wheeler, who's against the application.
Mr. Chairman, councillors, my name is Philip Wheeler and I live next door to the old blacksmith shop at 33 Brixworth Road. We are asking you to reject this application. We recognise that this is a balancing exercise. The report before you is very full. However, we don't believe the case officer has got the balance right. We are simply asking you to follow the Spratton Neighbourhood Plan adopted in July and now part of the Statutory Development Plan. One of the plan's stated objectives was to address traffic, parking and pedestrian movement issues in the village. Policy HP1 sets minimum parking standards for all new developments, in quotes. 2-bedroom houses must have 2 off-street parking places. This proposal has none. The case officer argues that this policy only applies to new builds, not conversions, but cannot explain why. We say that if you read the policy in context, there is no basis for such a distinction, and that policy HP1 applies to all new dwellings, regardless of their type. By law, planning applications must be determined in accordance with the development plan, unless material considerations indicate otherwise. So if you are to go against the plan, there must be good reasons for doing so. This proposal is essentially about a change of use, but the problem is that the existing use is not established. The officer makes arguments about permitted changes of use from B1 or B8 and based on paragraph 51 of the NPPF, but those arguments only apply if the building was used commercially. We are asking you to judge this against what this building was actually used for, which was essentially a non-commercial lock-up that generated very little parking. A house there would generate an additional residential parking requirement for at least 2 cars on a bit of pavement where already up to 6 cars park overnight and at weekends, including double parking. The Highways Authority has steadfastly opposed this plan, saying that parking on the pavement is illegal and citing road safety concerns. A number of Spratton residents have also objected on the grounds of road safety, particularly mothers walking children to school. For us, it can already be very dangerous to exit our drive, as badly parked cars can make it almost impossible to see what is coming down Brixworth Road or what is coming up, particularly when you're going out in reverse. This is only going to get worse if this is allowed, and it is simply no answer to say that the police don't do anything about it. We say that these considerations far outweigh any arguments in favour of departing from the development plan. We don't agree that other development plan policies support this proposal either, and it is just not true that the alternative is to allow this building to fall into disrepair. Then there is the impact that this would have on us in terms of loss of privacy, which without a site visit is very difficult to properly appreciate. For all these reasons, we ask you to find that the balance comes down against this proposal, but if you are minded to approve, we ask that you ensure that all the conditions recommended by the consultees in the report are imposed, which is not the case at the moment. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you, sir. Next speaker is Mr. Holman, who's the applicant.
Thank you, Chairman. Good evening, councillors. I'm Joshua Holman, and I grew up living in Little Brington. Being from a village, I appreciate the sense of community that living in one has. However, house prices are out of reach for young couples. We found a barn on Brixworth Road and immediately felt this could be an affordable family home. Therefore, we submitted the planning application. Also looking at the Spratton Neighbourhood Development Plan, it makes reference to the need for affordable housing for local people, particularly referencing paragraph 5.8. We believe converting the former blacksmith barn creates an ideal opportunity to do so and also retain and restore a historical part of the village, which at present ruins the risk of being neglected. Although being a historic part of Spratton, the blacksmith barn isn't listed and doesn't lie within the conservation area. However, we have tried to be sympathetic to the existing building in our approach to design with the choice of materials, but also including items such as the roof lights to help it a usable and comfortable family home. We will endeavour to replace any existing materials like for like, and where we are making changes from the existing building, such as on the street elevation, our proposal is to keep the overall elevational treatment the same. For example, where the existing barn has large timber doors, we're proposing to have rotating timber louvers, which can be seen on the photographs, which will give the appearance of a barn door when closed. The internal original A-frames will be kept, and we welcome the idea of reinstating the original brick chimney. Due to the nature of the building and the close proximity to the neighbours, we propose to use skylights rather than introduce additional windows to the facade. The skylights will be low profile and designed to remain as unobtrusive to the original building as possible. With the skylights being the main source of natural light into the building, we feel removing or reducing the size would have a major impact on the quality of living. With regards to other comments about the design, we feel our latest revision addresses these, hopefully pleasing neighbours' concerns. We understand that not including on-site parking in any new buildings in Spratton doesn't meet the criteria set out in the neighbourhood plan. However, we feel in this case it is somewhat of a grey area, as the plan doesn't make reference to redevelopment, change of use or restoration of existing buildings. We believe it's not classed as infill due to the building already existing and currently having a B-class status. We appreciate that there is a high certainty of degree that whatever the class of the building, parking would always be an issue in the future, and we believe previous concerns didn't consider that existing or future uses of the building. Parking in any free motorised village is always going to be a problem. The Stratton Neighbourhood Development Plan seeks to improve the highways for pedestrians and for residents. Therefore, this could be a good opportunity to address the issue, and we're more than happy to assist in seeing if there's a way forward. I've always lived local, we're working local, and we have family local. We believe in the merits and enjoy village life. We hope and trust the village and district can find a way to support young people in affordable opportunities to continue living in rural areas. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, sir. Local member, Councillor Fletcher.
Thank you, Chair. Well, I think this is a rather a poisoned chalice, whichever way you look at it. As a former long-term resident of Stratton, obviously I'm very familiar with this area, and I was also instrumental in writing and publishing the neighbourhood plan. I think that in the spirit of the plan, the idea of converting this building into a house is fine. I don't think there's much of a problem with that, and if that was the only issue, then I'd be 100% supporting it. However, as I said, having been a long-term resident of the village, I know full well the parking issues that occur down that road, and you could see from the photographs that the way the people park on there makes it a danger at all times of the day and night, because obviously people come and go. I've often struggled on my way back to just pull up to post a letter because of the way that inconsiderate people had parked their cars, and it's not always the residents, it's sometimes people trying to get access to Saul's the Butcher's, especially at busy times, which is just a few metres up the road. And I know what the meaning of the neighbourhood plan is, as I helped write it, and I was chairman of the parish council at the time, and I know that we were thinking that any building that was turned into a house or was built as a house should have the 2 parking spaces. I have had some indirect contact with the applicant at a recent parish council meeting, where it was suggested that a parking bay could be made out of that pavement, which, as you can see, is quite wide, and would make a safer pavement for pedestrians, because a little bit further down the road is the Brixworth Road Cemetery, which is a resource for the village and has recently become a wildflower garden of remembrance, and it was actually featured on television, so the school children go down there quite a lot, and it's a very dangerous road to walk down. I'm minded to ask for some sort of deferment of this particular decision tonight while it is investigated with the applicant and highways as to whether a parking bay could be instigated in the pavement. I noticed from the report that highways say they will not fund it because they have no money, but I don't know I don't know what the cost will be of doing that. Obviously it would be at the applicant's cost, but it seems to me that that would be a way of alleviating some of the problems that occur in that area. So before I say any more, I'd quite like to seek officers' guidance on that particular line of inquiry.
Chairman, we asked the County Council, as you see in the report there on page 56, about the possibility of a parking plan. They came back and said obviously they couldn't afford to do it. But they also said, assuming somebody else is going to pay for it, I guess, that the location next to the speed humps, etc., might make it particularly difficult to do this, and also would eat into the actual pavement area, which means people would have to literally walk across the parking bay, which again may or may not be an issue to them. So I don't think it's sure, clear, but it can never be done. I don't know, it's the short answer. It's certainly not part of this proposal before you now. So yeah, I guess you've got a choice really. If you want to see if it can be done, you can defer the application to see if it can be done, or you could refuse this if you're not happy with the lack of parking, and then it's up to the applicant if they want to resubmit with the parking guy having spoken to County Council. I think I would prefer the second course of action, to be honest.
Okay. In light of that, I think that the parking issue is serious enough to warrant a refusal of this application. I've been flip-flopping one way and another as I read through and hear the different presentations, because it is on a bit of a knife edge. But I think that the parking issue is such a serious one and is such a danger to pedestrians and motorists alike that to incur one or even two new cars to park there would displace people, would make it double parked, and it is bad enough trying to get a pram up there when their cars are parked, as you can see they are, and I've had to walk in the road just as a single person. So I would like to suggest that we go against officers' advice and that we reject this on the grounds of the contravening the Stratton Neighbourhood Development Plan, which is the latest document, and as I understand it, that takes precedence over other documents which are issued at an earlier time, because the latest document is always the most up to date, and therefore it takes precedence when there is some sort of plan. So I'd like to propose a refusal of this until or unless, obviously, the parking situation could be sorted out.
Thank you. Do you have a seconder? You'd like a second, Bradley? Would you like to speak now?
Yeah, I'll just say it's a really, really difficult one, and like Councillor Frenchman, I was torn on this one, but when you actually look at it on the big screen again, and having gone through there again on Sunday, I do use that road fairly frequently, and you can just see, I mean, it's a nightmare. It's an absolute nightmare. Anything that adds to it is bad, in my opinion. You also see potential conflict there. If it does go ahead, you can see that people already park outside it and will want to carry on parking outside it. That's my parking space. Not only does it move it out, it's actually parking right in front of somebody's house, and people expect to do it. That's not necessarily a planning issue, but you can just see immense difficulties in that, and that's why at this moment I have to agree with Councillor Frenchman.
Thank you. We've got 4 speakers at the moment. Councillor Ritchie's the first.
Thank you. From what I've said earlier in the evening, I don't like speaking against neighbourhood plans, but yeah, I think that perhaps there are sometimes circumstances that come up that are, that are quite exceptional. I'm hugely sympathetic to any area that has got parking problems. I know certainly in my patch there are loads and loads of parking problems. But here, whatever you do with that building, unless you regard it as being totally redundant, it is going to have, it is going to have a car or vehicles outside. If it is a business, if it, even if it is simply a storeroom, it's not going to have, that much traffic perhaps. But any sort of activity that takes place there is going to attract vehicles to it. The problem, therefore, as I see it, exists unless we are going to propose that we simply try to resolve the whole parking problem of the street by knocking it down and making it into a mini car park. It's good. There's a parking problem. It looks to me that it does have the advantage of a very generous, pavement that, that could allow the creation of a parking space. Whether a parking space is created or not, it's clear from the photographs that that everybody else simply assumes that it is a parking space. Everybody else seems to be parking, across that broad pavement. I just feel that in a case like this, if we are going to make use of that building, here we have got a use for it. I cannot see that by doing that we make the situation worse. Of course, if it wasn't there, we would not want it to be built without a parking space, but it exists. And I therefore in this case, would go with the officer's recommendation.
Thank you. Councillor Patrick next.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. I sympathise with the local member because it is a finely balanced situation this is, and I think that the use of the building for a house is probably the right thing to keep it maintained and be a good thing for a young couple to have a go at. I'm assuming the speaker, Mr. Wheeler, lives on the right hand side of the. You live on the left in the big house.
Sorry. It's the house at the back.
That house. The house at the back.
Behind the gates.
Well, I mean, I'm just looking at the photographs there, and I mean, to resolve the parking space, I mean, there's a green car parked on one of the photographs there, which could quite happily be, an arrangement could be made with the two neighbours if that was possible, but I don't know.
I think by the paces, I don't know if the arrangement's going to be possible.
I mean, we're talking about parking issue, nothing else.
Okay, Councillor Paul's next.
Yeah, I'm trying to assimilate which properties we're talking about. I know we're talking about the old blacksmith. That's the property there. The property with the long drive is in the ownership of whom?
The person.
The objector. So the objector has got a big long drive, and the building where the cursor was is the. Sorry, if you can go back to that previous drawing. The building on the right of that, where the cursor is now, is that the old forge?
Yes.
It is indeed. Right. Okay, that's fine. I find myself agreeing with Councillor Ritchie. If we bring it back into a smithy, which would really open up the old village world and bring a smithy back into town, then it's a business, and vehicles have got to park, and there will be occasional parking, and there's not occasional parking. I've listened to people with children pushing buggies down the road, and there are humps in that road. It is very difficult to drive very fast down it. I've looked at it. The privacy aspect. Officer had already said that the roof lights are too high for you to stand and look out unless you want to get a step ladder. I really don't have a problem. The other problem I do have, it's been suggested, because of the makeup of the building, etc., if the floor is going to be dug up, or if we're suggesting that the floor is going to be dug up, I would be interested in any archaeology that is under that floor. But apart from that, I don't have a problem with the building, and not with code officer advice.
Thank you, Councillor.
The proposal is on the table.
Councillor Parker.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Obviously know this area very well. My issue, I'd just like clarification from the officers. If you take the view there, for instance, if you just hold it there, there's a window on the front. Is that, opposite that then, is a bungalow? Window to window, 25 metres overlooking? Is that less than 25 metres, or does that not come into play?
Well, we don't normally apply it across open public streets, to be quite honest. Because you could look through the street across to the neighbour's property. But obviously it's up in the air.
Yeah.
But it's as I understand it, it's about 22-ish metres, which is about just on the guideline.
So it's there or thereabouts, but not 25.
Or sit in a double-decker bus and look the same way.
But if it was in a back, if that was done in a back development, you've got that ruling of 25 metres, haven't you, from window to window?
It's normally 22 between
22, is it, sorry?
Yeah.
So that's just
well,
about...
obviously that's just a guideline. I mean, it doesn't mean if you meet it, it's necessarily one way or the other, really. That's just a guideline to give people an idea how far apart buildings should be.
Okay.
Obviously, it could be closer or further apart, so you might still say it's acceptable or unacceptable because of the circumstances of the case. But what we generally tend to say is where it's the front of the property, people could walk down the street and look into people's front gardens. There's less privacy there than there is, obviously, in people's back gardens, private gardens.
It's just the bungalow is raised. It's not level with the pavement.
Councillor Logan.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. This is, I'm not surprised this one was kept till last. I don't know whether that was deliberate. But it has exercised our thoughts and our concerns for not only the couple that want to make a home there, but also the residents that live in that particular area. It's a question really, a local knowledge. Is the inconsiderate parking in that area down to convenience of the people that live there, or is the whole of Stratton completely packed? Would it be possible if they work together to find somewhere else within the village? They may have to walk to their home, but would there be space elsewhere, or is it a...
It's pretty packed, and they wouldn't walk anywhere. Even some of the houses further up have got arrangements with the pub car park, and they don't always use that.
Okay, all right. So with regard to communities coming together and problem solving some of these issues that already exist, there could be some solutions if people really wanted to.
There's always a solution.
All right. I know, and I just wanted to get some context as to, I agree with a couple of the comments with regard to, if not a dwelling, then what, and what does that bring? And that probably brings us with similar problems, and so therefore, I am inclined to go with officers' advice with a massive plea to the local community to work together and try and find a solution. And because obviously that's not tenable, is it? You can't have, eventually somebody's either going to get prosecuted for illegal parking or be the cause of a serious accident and then be subject to the rule of law on that bit. So it needs to be resolved. I'm not too sure denying this application solves the problem. In essence. Thank you, Chair.
Got 4 more speakers down to speak, and then hopefully we can get to the vote. Councillor Frenchman.
Thank you. I just wanted to clarify something with officers. The building itself doesn't have planning permission for uses of B class, does it? So if they wanted to use it, they'd have to apply for planning permission.
Well, what I said in my opening really is that whatever it is was pre-planning, so pre-1947. So that meant it never had to have planning permission for whatever it was. So if somebody now wants to say it has a particular use, whatever it might be, the normal way to deal with that would be the certificate of lawful use, which there isn't on the building. So they would have to make an application for a certificate, submit evidence, and we would have to take a view as to, on the balance of probabilities, whether what they were saying was right or wrong. But I think our general view is that it's been some sort of storage or workshop or one or the other, which generally would fall into the B categories. Now that's where we differ with the neighbour. But the lawful position, I'm sure Simon can confirm this, is it doesn't have an established use. We don't know what it is.
So that would have to be established if it was to be used as something other than whatever it is at the moment.
Yeah. I mean, if somebody goes in there tomorrow and we get a complaint as breach of planning control, and they get served an enforcement notice and they appeal against that enforcement notice and say, we appeal on the ground that we don't need planning permission for what we're doing, that would have to be looked into if they don't have a lawful development certificate. but as I say, there are different stories coming out of different people. And the normal way these established use certificates are dealt with is people that have lived in a village for a long time without knowledge would be asked to submit evidence as to what they can say hand on heart was the use of the building.
Okay.
So the point I'm getting at there is that most of that activity, if it was a workshop or an office, would be in the daytime when a lot of people are at work. So the parking would not be as bad as it would be at weekends and the evening when everybody's at home. So that is the issue about it's irrelevant what the class is or was or might be, because the parking issues, if it's a house, would occur at the same time for everybody, which would be in the evenings and the weekends. As Councillor August says, there is that parking on the pavement is actually illegal anyway, and I believe there has been a number of complaints made to the police about it, so I don't know what effect that will have. But taking on board the Chairman's previous advice, I'd also like that if I lose this vote, there are some conditions that appear to be missing off the that have been suggested by consultees but don't appear in the list at the end, and that's mainly to do with wildlife and the kestrels that I've seen nesting there. I have some very cute photographs of, and they need to be taken care of because they seem to have made it into their annual home. And the bat and the bird survey.
We have actually put an informative on, to be fair, rather than a condition about that. I think it's note number 1 there. And that was on the suggestion of the guy from the Wildlife Trust who said you can either do a condition or maybe an informative. So on that basis we decided to go with the informative. But if members wanted to put a condition, I guess we could look at that.
So it's a separate issue. I don't know what the difference is. I can see what the difference is.
It's how enforceable it is, I suppose. An informative is telling them what they ought to do if something happens, and a condition will be telling them what they must do if something happens.
If it helps, Councillor Frenchman, we're looking at this plan here, it's an approved plan, it's an approved revised plan, and it does say the existing kestrel needs to be retained. So if we're requiring that they develop in accordance with the approved plans, then that is covered.
That's the hole that they nest in, but that's not necessarily the disturbance of the birds when they are brooding or nesting or whatever. It's just saying keep this hole open for them to nest in if they want
this nesting for them, yeah.
But what I'm saying is we ought to have a slightly more robust condition about protecting their breeding times so they aren't knocking it around at the time they are breeding or feeding the young.
Well, what we'll do, Councillor Frenchman, is when we get to the vote, should the vote go through for approval, we will then vote on this, considering that condition, okay?
Thank you.
We'll leave it till then, so you can have the committee can discuss it if it goes through. Councillor Evans.
Sorry, Chairman, I was just going to add on conditions. I've also said at the beginning that we will put on one about contamination, which was one of the other ones suggested by the...
So we'll talk about that one at the same time.
Well, I'm happy with that one anyway, to be fair, Chairman, because that was a suggestion. I mean, I think effectively the wording of note number 1 is pretty similar to what the wording of the condition will be, but if members want it turned into a condition, so be it. Having said all that, I would just point out that the government's just issued a consultation and finished today, I think, on using less conditions in planning permission because they're further development but delayed by people putting too many conditions on. So I just throw that out there for consideration.
You will be able to buy permission with the post office soon. Councillor Evans.
Thank you, Chairman. I would like to see this be approved because I think the applicants have really looked at it and kept as much as possible to make it look as though it will look like the building that it is now, with the shutters they're doing and everything else. So for those reasons I would like it. Parking is a nuisance, but when you look at those photos of the cars down there, that's quite a wide path. I mean, that bit between the cars and the road is as wide as some of the pathways in Daventry. Would it be too much for highways to do what I've seen in some places where they put a yellow line on a pathway so that the cars park next to the road and the bit between the house and the cars is the pavement for the people. They'd still have the width of path that is there now. We've plenty for them to walk up and down, and all it would take was a couple of tins of yellow paint. Sure, highways can afford that.
I think, through you, Chairman, the pre-existing parking issues and the locality are obviously a consideration. That isn't something for planning committee to resolve, because it is, strictly speaking, a long way outside of the application site. That said, there are a number of multi-agency forums where this sort of is discussed. I know there's been lots of villages where the parishes work with the county council, highways, under the bodies to redesign certain schemes. There is no reason why this issue couldn't be referred back by the planning committee to the parish council. We could ask the road joint action group, which is part of the community safety partnership, to look at it. I mean, all of which is outside planning. I just put it to you that they might be the appropriate forums to actually try and get a solution to address the wider problems.
It seems a shame that this might be refused because of the parking, because the other houses down there have got the same problem. I know they've been there a long while and the parking has come since the houses were there, but I'd like to see this approved.
I just wonder what would happen if I parked my great big van outside there for a couple of days when it was a house. Who would do the arguing?
Can I just do a question on one of the photos, please? There's a photo looking at the front of the house. There. No, I can't see anybody sitting in that car. Is it parked there?
Somebody's in the phone box. I mean, they went in the phone box. Sorry, the black car.
The dark one, yeah, that's parked in the driveway of the house.
I would suggest both cars are in the wrong.
I believe that car is owned by the owner of that house.
But he's blocking the path, so...
It's there to demonstrate. It's there to demonstrate how difficult it is to come out.
So it's contrived for that purpose.
Well, that would be where the owner of that house would have to go to pull out.
And my thought was the saving person from the silver car is the person that's gone into the phone box.
Okay, the next person to speak is Councillor Carr and then Councillor Robertson.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I'm minded to go along with officers' advice, really, because this to me just seems like it's a case of I'm all right, Jack. I've got my house, I've got somewhere to park my car, and they want to stop somebody from turning this beautiful building into a beautiful home, because of what I can hear. It's just on the basis of car parking. You know, I can't understand the mentality where they want to put cars before people. You know, we must have somewhere to park our car, but you're not having anywhere to live. And I mean, I represent one of the latest developments really in Daventry, and we've got terrible parking issues. Some of the families there have got no less than 5 cars. You know, the children have grown up, they've all got cars. It is a bit of a menace, and I don't think, you know, we can do much about that really, but, you know, to stop this planning application on the basis of people are going to have to be more considerate to each other, not a better way of doing it. So, yes, Chair, I'll go along with officers' advice.
Thank you, Councillor Carr. Now, Councillor Robertson, then hopefully we can get to a vote.
Thank you, Chair. I was going to make the point that Stratton, nice old village that it is very much like a lot of other old villages that we live in. No consideration was given to motor vehicles of any kind when they were constructed, and those who are fortunate enough to have their own driveways are fortunate indeed, because motor vehicles are a fact of life now. We're getting more and more of them every time. We cannot possibly in this country design houses for 5 cars, which is you know, Councillor Carr has just said, didn't say to design them, he said that, you know, it's become a menace, and it has become a menace. It's become a menace universally. Now, I'm not sure, like advice, legal advice on this, that parking on the pavement is actually illegal. I don't believe it is. I was told recently it isn't. I was told
It's inconsiderate.
I was told that an obstruction's illegal, but parking on the pavement's not illegal.
I can tell you that Longbuckby Parish Council asked the police to do people, if you like, on the path. And that's illegal. Northamptonshire Chief Constable said that because of the problems in villages, they will not take action against people on the path. But it is illegal to park on the path.
Chair, through you, I think it's actually termed as ill-considerate parking.
Yeah.
So that actually is the cover-all for anyone parking, especially where pedestrians.
So it's not specific. It's not a specific offence parking on the pavement.
It's dangerous parking, isn't it?
Right, well,
I'm aware, through you, Chairman, that there's an offence, it's a moving vehicle offence. In some circumstances, if a policeman spots a car driving dangerously on a pavement, but that has got to be specific circumstances, and it is about the movement on the vehicle.
Anyway, my whole point basically hangs around the fact that villages were never designed for this purpose in the first place. Quite a lot of villages don't have pavements, let alone parking facilities outside the houses. And I would like to see officers' advice taken as well on that basis.
Thank you. Well, I think we've had a pretty good debate on it. We've now come to the vote on it. We have a proposal that officers' advice be accepted, which has been seconded. Sorry, the proposal is the application be refused, and we will consider afterwards if it's not refused any additions to the points of it.
Can we check the reasons, Chairman, before the vote? I think no.
Yes, it's contrary to Stratton.
Yeah, I was going to say, I heard you say something about exacerbating the existing situation.
Yeah,
So,
it was a planning reason.
but it's basically contrary to the neighbourhood plan. It's going to exacerbate, as in fact worse, obviously, an existing situation.
Okay, so you all know what you're voting for. The proposal is this to refuse the application. Those in favour of the refuse the application, please show. Right, those against? Right. Right, the application is not refused. Is this the other way, John?
Well, you need to vote it because you need to put conditions you'll put.
Yes, right, so we need a proposal the other way. Councillor Owen.
That we propose to go with officers' advice. Bearing in mind there's a number of conditions.
Yeah, we'll talk about that if that goes through.
Well, I know you could do that to part of this.
Okay.
On the proviso that the conditions are out.
All right, you want to do the conditions now?
You have to, otherwise you don't know what you're voting for.
Yeah,
Well,
that's true.
I've already said we will add on the condition on contamination.
Well, that's
and the other issue was whether the note that we put on should be a note as it is put on, or should be a condition. Now, to my mind, it's basically putting the emphasis and the onus on the developer that if they find anything during the works, the liability of damaging protected species or whatever is on them, as it says. So it's something they've got to do really. They've got to be aware of what they're doing while they're doing the work. And whether you tell them in a condition or in an informative, the responsibility is on them basically.
The reason I raised it as could we make it condition is because I don't understand what a note is and what status it has, because I don't think we've ever discussed that before or it's ever come up in a training.
It's basically saying the same thing really in this case, but obviously conditions can be enforced. But in this particular instance, the circumstances are it's something that the owner's got to be aware of while they're doing the work, is what they're saying. So if you suddenly find something, you find bats or something roosting in the roof, you're supposed to immediately stop work and contact somebody who's qualified in dealing with bats, and you've got to take advice on how you're going to deal with that, or you're guilty of a criminal offence.
Chairman, through you, I think Councillor Frenchman's concern here is slightly different to that. His was, there are times of the when kestrels breed. I've shown all my knowledge of ornithology in one sentence there. And the applicants should be dissuaded from developing during that period. Well, if that is the case, then probably that does need to be a condition because you're actually affecting the timing of when they can issue.
Thank you, that was really what I was driving at.
So the two extra conditions are the digging the floor out and also the condition about kestrels.
Specific kestrels in here. But the other thing about protected species stands as well, in other words, we don't think there are any in there.
Yes.
But if you do some work and you find some, you've got to stop straight away.
I understand that. It was more disturbing the with building work.
Are there any other conditions you want to add, or not add, or take away, or whatever?
Considerate parking.
No, I don't think you can do that. Well, that's the point. Right, we've got a proposal that the application be approved, subject to the addition of those two conditions. All those in favour, please show.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8, 9.
Those against?
9.
The application is approved, 9 votes to 2. Right, and that concludes the meeting for tonight. Thank you for attending. Thank you.